Hello, and welcome back to the Douglas Fir Association, which might be a brief gap for you watching because I don't think I've released the Lost Highway video yet. But in between Lost Highway and Eraserhead, it was about 5 months for us, so we've had a bit of a extended break, and now we're back into it. And my pick, Eraserhead. Uh, God, I mean, I feel like you could talk for hours about this, or you could just talk about it in like a minute and get it done. Do you know what I mean? It feels like the middle ground is going to be a bit difficult to get to. But just watching it last night, I was thinking, God, how did he even have a career after this? You know,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a film that did great. It did well in midnight showings, became a cult film, and thank God Mel Brooks saw it and liked it because then we got The Elephant Man, and then his career continued after that. But this is like a labor of love for Lynch. And I wanted to kind of maybe look into all the background. I remember in his book, the story of making it is incredible. I've forgotten most of it. But we should probably focus more just on our reactions to the film more than like an exhaustive retrospective on things. But the fact that it took so many years, and I love the story of he was trying to get approval for funding, and the script is about
Yeah.
20 pages long, and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's not very long then," because most traditional scripts it's a page per minute. But yeah, that's why it took years and years, even to the point of Jack Nance keeping that ridiculous hairstyle going for as long as it took. So it was like a kind of you know do it yourself kind of production. But I have to say, like, it doesn't look or feel like an amateur film in that sense. Maybe
No,
maybe amateur's not the right word, but it feels like a fully fledged, proper fucking film. Like the production
absolutely.
design, the
Yeah.
detail, the art design is just stellar. I guess again they spent years on it, and he is who he is, and had a background in like art, being a painter. That was what he started with, and then got more interested in film, animations, and short films and stuff. The Grandmother is one I really want to watch with you and maybe do a little video on. But
Yeah.
then came Eraserhead, the first feature film. So we'd both seen this before many years ago. When do you remember when you saw this film for the first time?
Yeah, it was my second ever Lynch film, so it was probably around 2011, 2012.
Yeah, it was 2016 for me. So yeah, about a decade. What were your thoughts revisiting it? Oh no, what were your thoughts in the first time around? I should say.
I absolutely loved it. At the time, I was going through a lot of Eastern European films of the same sort of tone and the same sort of aesthetic, if you like. A
Okay.
lot of black and white sort of stuff like Bellatar stuff and like Wreckmaster Harmonies and the Chewing Horse. So that they had that same kind of aesthetic almost, same kind of strangeness as well.
Hmm.
But one thing I've said throughout the years, which I absolutely love, is the audio in the film also almost becomes like a secondary character, and it just changes the whole the whole feel of the film. And I think without that drowning noise that's just constant, it would um become a lot weirder.
Yeah, it is hard to imagine the film without that audio, that sound design. Um, it's almost like a constant white noise, which
Yeah.
I struggled with last night because I've been sleeping with literally a white noise machine for the better part of the last 3 years, and so it was lulling me to sleep.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind the pace of it, or the kind of that style of really taking your time, which is something Lynch does a lot anyway. But I think it's just the darkness of the film, the quietness of it, and then that constant humming. Sounds like you're in a factory constantly, or there's just
Yeah.
always something brewing underneath, and it kind of, I got,
Yeah,
I,
it resonates with me quite a bit because where I live, the Industrial Revolution was like the main thing that happened here. So there's a lot of that industrial kind of areas around here, and there still is to this day, but even more so when I was a kid. And the noises that happen in the film are a lot of the noises that I used to hear as a kid, going like, well, when we was playing out and like around the industrial estates and stuff like that. So it's quite, it's almost a bit soothing that noise to me because it reminds me of childhood, and you still hear it today, to be fair, but obviously not as much. But that industrial sound it's quite common to hear around here, I suppose.
Wow, that's an interesting one. That's yeah, I can see that. For me, it's just like I need like a like rainfall or something. I don't
Mhm.
need it if I'm exhausted, but like it really helps. And while the sound design in Eraserhead isn't exactly the kind of stuff that I put on to go to sleep, it's fairly similar. Kind of a
Yeah,
constant thrumming of but the whole film feels really claustrophobic, and I don't know, that adds to it. It's like everything's living and breathing, and there's something about like organic with the baby, obviously. I mean,
yeah,
we can sum up the plot of the film in like two sentences. It's about
yeah,
this guy who finds out that his girlfriend has given birth to something that isn't exactly human, and he's ultimately tasked with looking after it on his own. That's it. And it's this weird,
yeah.
strange. I gotta say, it's like maybe like one of the most disturbing things I've seen in a film, and maybe one of the most impressive things in terms of how real it feels.
The way he pans from the baby and he says, "Oh, you are sick," and he just pans back to it, and it's completely emaciated
Covered in
and
warts
sick.
and yeah,
Yeah, yeah, horrible stuff, man.
yeah. I've been reading up on that actually because I was intrigued, and he's been famously cagey about how they pulled off the baby. And
Mm.
there's theories that he used a lamb fetus or like a skinned rabbit or something like that. The lamb fetus theory is the popular one, but the people who push back on it say that they were filming this for years, and
Yeah,
it looks very consistent. So it was very
yeah, yeah,
and you think of the smell on the set as well.
mm.
But
Yeah, yeah.
I have to say, looking at it, like in terms of the jaw movements, the way the throat moves, there's a tongue in there. It just looks so realistic.
Yeah,
But yeah, maybe it's best not to know exactly how that was pulled off. But
yeah,
it's such a because that's the really the focal point of the film is this creature and how he feels about it, how he reacts to it, how he doesn't react to it, and so clearly a lot of care was put into creating this horrific thing. How did you feel about it, this baby creature, this kind of central horror of the film?
it's horrible to see, and there's kind of gives out that message of like an unprepared life of being a father, which I quite liked. But yeah, it's horrible to look at, isn't it? And it's just disturbing. It really is.
Yeah, I'm assuming anyone watching or listening to this has already seen the film, but especially when he cuts open the bandage, and it's almost like
Mm.
I'd forgotten what happened in that scene, and you kind of look at it the whole film, you're thinking, what is under that thing? What does his body look like? And the way it's just, oh, I don't know, it's that whole opening of the bandage sequence is grim. It's not my kind of thing usually. It's
No.
I soldier through because it's Lynch, I guess, but
Yeah.
but again, it toes the line of being abhorrent and really impressive. Strangely, I just think that
Yeah.
yeah, it really gets under my skin.
And it kind of gives you hope that if you are an aspiring filmmaker, as I know you are, that a film of this caliber can be made for such a well, what would be considered to be a very small budget, and without not much experience, unknown actors. So it's it was, especially for the time as well it was made. The fact that it even made it to cinemas, even if it was late night showings, was just phenomenal to me. Do you think how many short films just make it to YouTube now? And yeah, it's kind of cool, man, that he managed to make it. So one of the things that we both picked up on last night was we started to see little smackerings of Lynch's later works in these films.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we sort of saw some stuff that was reminiscent of Twin Peaks, um, and stuff like that. So it was quite cool seeing those little, almost like little Easter eggs that are hidden in the past.
sure. Yeah, I mean, there's the chevron flooring in the room
Yeah.
with the elevator, and then there's the number on his girlfriend's house, or the numbers. To me, they look exactly the same as like the style of numbers used in. I think it's in Fire Walk with Me. I don't think it's in the show Twin
Yeah.
Peaks, but at the trailer park. So it's just, I think it's just things that he likes that he's like. I wonder if the little stage with the woman and the radiator. I wonder if the curtains are red. You can probably
Mm.
find that out, but I don't know because he
There was
loves
also
red.
a fish on. There was also a fish on the wall.
Was there? I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Pops up quite often.
Well, there was one moment in the opening scene where I was just like, because I saw something that was so, I mean, there's such a parallel, a handshake through time with Eraserhead and Twin Peaks: The Return. I just thought, holy shit. Because I hadn't remembered that specific thing. We'll get to it, obviously. I'm not going to say what it is, but that was super exciting for me. I was like, holy shit. And just in general, that opening sequence, because it leans so heavily into this surrealist style. And then suddenly you're just following Jack Nance just walking around an industrial area. But even like what strikes me is the house, his girlfriend's house. It feels like it's not on a street. It's bunkered in somewhere. Like it's such an uncomfortable feeling. Pipes everywhere, and that
The whole thing just feels like he's trapped in a nightmare.
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And you get the very strange Lynchian quirks of
Yeah.
characters saying things unnaturally, and it makes you wonder: is that just like bad acting, or is that like, you know? But one thing I will say is that he spent a few years in Philadelphia, and it was a horrible neighborhood. And he'd see, like, I think his house got broken into, I think, on more than one occasion, and he just saw things that he said like it never leaves you, and so you get the feeling that kind of seeps its way into this film. And maybe
That was a throwback from Lost Highway, wasn't it? I remember you saying.
I
You
might
know,
have
when
mentioned.
the house gets broken into.
I can't remember. I cannot even remember. Possibly, yeah. I mean, I might. Yeah, I'm sure I must have mentioned it or something. But I mean, I would imagine having that kind of a formative experience, because that was where I think he had his first child and lived with his first wife. Probably informs a lot of stuff that came afterwards. And I also read that his daughter had clubbed feet and so was in and out of surgeries. So you can kind of see where maybe some of this storyline came from. But I'm watching it and I'm thinking, okay, am I looking at it as this is a guy who's afraid of fatherhood, or am I just letting the images wash over me? Instead of trying to figure it out. But there's definitely, I mean, there's a lot of that kind of parental anxiety and a lot of sexual subtext.
Yeah.
A lot of that going on. That whole sequence in the bed where like he's pulling out the little kind of
Oh, I hate that bit.
yeah. I'm sure there's a lot you can read into and stuff, but I prefer to just kind of sit there going, what the fuck?
They got the
But
guy just pulling those random pullers, them random levers. It's almost like he's controlling the whole
yeah,
everything that's happening.
yeah. But we've talked about it before about logic and
Yeah.
just mood and atmosphere. And it has a mood and it has an atmosphere, and it's like, what is this? Um, but I think I don't love the film. I like it. I appreciate its artfulness, the cinematography, and the sound design. But I think the best thing it does is capture a feeling of just being uncomfortable.
Red.
If that
Yeah.
makes any kind of sense. Like there's just an uneasy feeling throughout the entire film that just sustains until the end. And then it lets go of you and you can just breathe for a second. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it does that really well. And I feel like maybe a normal film might have like a crazy sequence, like a dream sequence that's like full of metaphors and stuff. And it's like Lynch has gone, why don't I just make a full movie like that? Forget about the normal stuff. Let's just do
Yeah.
the.
It's like you said, we don't. It might not even be that Lynch understands what he's making, but he just enjoys it,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think everything needs a logical explanation.
I mean, there's a chick in the radiator. Don't need to understand that.
I don't know where this is from. It's some UK comedy show from about 20 years ago. I don't even know the context. But it was about some fictional skit. I think Chris Evans was involved. And it was called Handcuffed to a Radiator. Does that ring any bells to you at all? Probably not. And there was a song and it
It
was like
doesn't.
it's like handcuffed to a radiator, handcuffed to a radiator. And I always think of it and I don't know why and I can't find it. I've tried to YouTube it, nothing. And I'm thinking, did I just imagine that? Is that like a Mandela effect without anything actually existing at the beginning? But that, as I was watching the film, Handcuffed to a Radiator came to a head. That whole song. Now, I first thought is Lynch singing the song, the woman's lip syncing, but there's a different guy. It is a male voice that's kind of a high, kind of pitched. It's not Lynch though. That whole God, it's just full of all these like, what on earth? The sequence where the neighbor comes over and they start getting on, and the camera pans up to the bed and they're there kissing. And I didn't even realize for a while that they're inside the bed, and I was like, oh. And then I realized there's water in the bed. I'm like, what the fuck? You know? And then they start sinking into it. And I'm like, all right, let's, yeah.
The scene in the kitchen, which was so Lynchian, is ridiculous. Where the mother's just sitting in the chair and she comes over with the food and she makes a mom smash the food up for like 5 seconds and then just takes it back.
Yes. Like, why would you do that? Just. And it's not like she comes out and says, "Oh, mother helped with this." Like, it's never mentioned again. Like, you know, she's just. No. It feels like that was just a woman who was there that day, and Lynch just sat down and just said, "Don't do anything." You know. Oh, and the little chickens, like, oh, we got those new chickens in the size of your fist, and then it's bleeding all over, like, just. No.
And the fact that the girl can't stop screaming unless her mom brushes her hair.
Yeah. Did you recognize another Twin Peaks character in the film apart from Jack Nance, or Twin Peaks actor, I should say?
I don't think so.
No, so I think it's Charlotte Stewart who plays his girlfriend. She is Mrs. Briggs, I guess, the mother of Bobby, wife of Major Briggs. Yeah. Obviously not a huge character in the show, but
yeah.
And Catherine Coulson, who plays the log lady, was pretty instrumental in the making of this film, and she was in it for a while, and they cut a scene out, but she was there working on the film. I think like they had like a barn or something, and Lynch just lived in it for years while they were making it, so it was like a proper group effort. And you know, you were saying like, oh, it shows you what you can do, you know, without much. But I just think Lynch is just such a different kind of person. He has that vision, and he also has like the background before this of like working with materials, creating art, and that kind of thing, and probably had a lot of input in terms of the way the thing looked visually. It's just lots of little tiny, but I forget even now, a day after watching it, there's a bit with a little worm thing that runs away. It's like a little thing that he puts inside the box. I think that's stop motion.
It's in the cupboard.
Right. So just a bit of stop motion animation, or like even just the shots panning over that planet or moon or whatever it's supposed to be. It's so atmospheric, and it just feels really accomplished, you know, right from the beginning. It's just
absolutely.
But yeah, I did struggle, as I told you. I nodded off many times, and when I do that, I have to rewind it and make sure I don't miss anything. So that sequence in the little factory room with all the pencils, I must have seen those fucking things whiz by me like 20 times. It's like, oh my God, like I wake up and he's like, it's okay. What's okay? All right, let's go back again. Pencils on the conveyor belt. Okay, it's okay. What's okay? I got to go back. There's nothing. I haven't missed anything. I'm just obsessively trying to make sure I focus on these fucking pencils. That's pretty much it, really. There's not much more I can add to it, I think.
No, I don't think so.
And obviously seeing Jack Nance that young. Did I send you that meme earlier? It was like 29-year-olds in 1977 versus 29-year-olds in 2024. And it was
I don't think so.
Yeah, it was a picture of him in Eraserhead and a picture of him in Twin Peaks. But I would reverse that though, in that, you know, he aged so quickly. And I think that 29-year-olds today look a lot younger than they are. So it absolutely. Yeah, but Jack Nance, he does a good job of being. What I find interesting actually is when he first comes home and the baby's there, and girlfriend's there, and she's looking very grim, and he looks over and smiles like, "Oh, you know, this is nice." And then after that, I don't think you see him smile again for the rest of the movie. But it was just like, so he actually likes this baby, but then no, it's, you know. And I felt uncomfortable during some of that stuff where it's like the baby's crying at night and they're just lying in bed not doing anything, and it's like, I know it's this creature and it's, not a human or whatever, but I still imprint the feeling that it's an actual child or something, and it's like, don't let it cry. Like, what are you doing? Like, it needs help, it needs attention. So that stuff, as a parent is like, gets under my skin a little bit as well, because it feels like neglect. Well, of course it's neglect. I mean, look at the fucking thing. I mean, and then he spoilers, stabs it at the end and kills it. Another tiny thing I want to mention is when she leaves and she gets down on her knees at the foot of the bed and she's just like, I don't know, she's pulling at the suitcase. We don't know that yet. And so her face is just there, just like rhythmic, and she's grunting, and it's like, what is going on? Like, and it goes on for so long, or it feels like it does.
Yeah.
And that's just the kind of detail that he picks up on. It's like, right, pull the suitcase out, but don't actually pull it out for like 20 minutes, just struggle for ages.
Yeah.
And then it goes over the point of uncomfortableness, I guess. I don't know. He certainly conveys mood. So that's Eraserhead. for better or worse.
Yeah.
And probably a film that has, or is comprised of maybe 15%, 10% dialogue, 90% nothing. There's very little dialogue.
And that's testament to how good the sound design is, isn't it, really?
True, yeah. And visually as well. There were certain shots I was just like, fuck, he's such a great. Even there's a bit where he walks into the elevator and he's just stood there waiting, and it's just framed so nicely. I don't know.
That wide shot I sent you today that I said reminded me of Buster Keaton, where he's just walking along the side of the factory. It's just such a beautifully wide shot. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and a very minor character. This young kid comes into the film to pick up his head for whatever reason, and he's peeking around a corner. And it reminded me of Jackie Coogan in Chaplin's The Kid. Maybe not a reference, but it reminded me of that. Anyway, yeah. So Eraserhead. We'll leave that there. Should we do our updated rankings then? I've already forgotten what my ranking was beforehand. So we got Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, Elephant Man, Lost Highway, and now Eraserhead.
Okay.
Let me think about that. I think. I don't know. I've already forgotten. But no, yeah, Elephant Man number 1 still.
Yep.
2, Fire Walk with Me, Lost Highway, and then Eraserhead. That'd be my order.
I would put Eraserhead above Lost Highway, I think, for me.
Mm-hmm.
More so because I think it's a better constructed film.
Yeah.
I don't get as lost as I do. In saying that, I've only watched Lost Highway once.
Which is interesting, because I was really hoping that this reviewing of Eraserhead for me, because I did mention when I first watched it, I wasn't a Lynch fan. I'd never seen Twin Peaks, so I wasn't really in that world, and now I am. And it was the same for me pretty much. I appreciate it a little bit more, but it wasn't like whereas Lost Highway, I really loved more than the first time I watched it. So I guess that's the difference for me, is that they improved.
I think revisiting Lost Highway will be better for me going forward, like a bit like you, I suppose.
Maybe,
I feel the same with Eraserhead. Had that shock value first time round, but once you know kind of the gist of it, it does take it a little bit like shine off. It doesn't take away from the film and how great it is in terms of its filmmaking, but I think it does take that a little bit of shock factor away, because you kind of almost remember straight away what happens.
Sure. So what would your order be then overall?
So my ranking would be Elephant Man, Walk with Me,
Okay.
Eraserhead, and then Lost Highway.
Okay, pretty similar then. Yeah. All right. So it is now down to you to pick the next one, which will be the 5th out of the 10 films. We'll be halfway then once we watch this next one. And I've been trying to guess what it is. Have you been thinking about it, or are you just winging?
I have. I have been thinking about it, and it's about a girl. I've been trying to think about what this song could be, what this film could be.
Yeah.
And she wears blue velvet. Bluer than velvet were her eyes.
Is that where we
Oh,
got?
God,
We
no.
subconsciously both went with the blue theme on this with the lighting, so we're already
I don't think
precursoringly.
you'd notice. I don't know if you can hear that or not. I don't know if my phone's flipping it out,
I
but I've
could
got
just about. I could just about. I wasn't quite getting it, but yeah.
yes, so Blue Velvet, one I'm really looking forward to.
Of
Ever since Twin Peaks.
course,
Um,
yeah.
I know you said it's almost like a precursor to Twin Peaks in that I think you said that Carl McLaughlin's a bit like Coop in it. But one that I've heard lots of great things of over the years as well. I've only ever seen a little clip of it, and it's the scene where Dennis Hopper puts the face mask on.
Oh yeah.
But that's the only thing I've ever seen of it. I know nothing about the plot, so I'm really intrigued to see it.
Yeah, and I guess I would say not to read too much into that, but his character does feel a little bit like a younger version of Cooper in a sense. He's a guy
Yeah,
who loves mystery. I feel like that's Cooper's character, and just I think it is the first film where he collaborated with Angelo Badalamenti, so the music
yeah,
comes in, and that is very much a key part to Twin Peaks. So that's those aspects of me make it feel like that. But yeah, it's a great one. I'm quite a big
yeah.
fan of it, so I'm looking forward to revisiting that one for sure. Um, all right. So, anything else to add about Eraserhead? Did we used to end these? See, it's been so long. Did we used to end these with a quote from the film? Uh, you've already done the one that you are sick. I'm trying to think. Is there any other lines of dialogue that are actually memorable from Eraserhead? Um,
It's the line from the song. Um,
yeah.
she sings it over and over again, and yet I can't remember it now.
In heaven, everything. No, in heaven, everything. No, is it everything will be
Everything is
fine?
fine.
Everything
Everything is
is
fine.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Such a weird, haunting song, isn't it? Because I think it's like
yeah, it
two or
really
three
is.
lines, and her just constant kind of gleeful expression.
It's
That
another thing you got to think about women singing on stages.
oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely, yes. So there's that. I mean, there's Blue Velvet. It's a big part of Blue Velvet. Twin Peaks. Yeah, that's yeah, definitely a couple more as well that you haven't seen. So yeah. All right then. Well, we'll leave it there, and we will reconvene with Blue Velvet and continue on with this journey. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.